back to another video. In this particular video, I will be discussing the particular key shape required in order to create a stable electromagnetic field based on the placements of the electromagnetic field stimulated by individual magnets, which upon nuclear fusion, if we have these magnets placed in this particular pattern of the 64 tetrahedron, we then find that if you find the key insertion points of the electromagnetic field of the magnets, you enter the most stable core form, which cannot collapse upon itself or break apart, but it stabilizes in an equilibrium. And so what might be number 64? Well, in the 64th element of the periodic table, we find, forget JC, good old JD, lenthiline, I believe it is called. And from this particular element, this particular metal, we can actively create a strong enough focal point. Silver is an aspect of this particular metal. It is a silver property, which means it has a greater reflective pattern. Now, as discussed in previous videos, I mentioned iron being the predominant fusion port for natural nuclear fusion to occur within said universe on its own natural process. But if man is to recreate fusion in an essence within an atmosphere, within a greater atmosphere, in order to create our own synthetic nuclear fusion, we would have to essentially go into the good old GD, the 64th element of the periodic table, which from this particular element we can actively create a more stable nuclear fusion from. And in this particular field of energy now created by the 64 tetrahedron shape, each focal point is meant to be of a magnetizing field pointing inwards, which forget now placing large fields of magnetizing energy, but simply similar to a laser. And in this particular laser structure, as I've discussed prior to our understanding of the laser being a way to maximize the output at which we not only conserve the energy in order to maximize the potential light, but we also can use this laser and the carbon element, the purest form of carbon known as a diamond, which a diamond can create a focal point from, which once again redensens or exponentially grows the way the laser then points itself and shines. In this particular notion, if we were to place a laser at each particular 64 points of the 64 tetrahedron, you would essentially find that if you point 64 of these lasers within said electromagnetic field, simply based on light now, without the use of anything except purely light that cancels and refracts and stabilizes into a nuclear fusion utilizing the 64th element of the periodic table. Good old God. Good old GD. And as we get into the further analysis, we can exponentially grow or even contract and increase the potential at which this now nuclear fusion is created specifically just on light at this particular point. But now imagine if you add magnetism to said external force, which once again, in the idea of compressing said fusion between two electrical similarities known as polarities, if we were to place a negative, or specifically now positive energies, positive to positive, why might that be? Because in the positive to positive, the energy is going in the direction towards the negative. And you could alter this process the other way. You could actively create an imploding of energy, just as an exploding of energy. And in this particular notion, the direction at which you choose the polarity, whether you create an imploding of said energy to create the fusion, and then if you were to simply alter the polarities, now all of a sudden you would find that the reaction of the fusion can then be transferred back through the magnet and re-begin charging itself in a renewable flow of energy. It will at first require an investment of energy, but in order for this energy to stabilize, we need to essentially spend a lot of money. And once we do create this stabilizing, we can shift the polarities at which the magnets controlling the condensing of said electromagnetic field, resulting in the compression of said fusion. And the more we compress and densen the said fusion, the more potential energy resonance of light it is emitting. And back through the magnet, it creates now an electrical current, which can be relayed back into the initial battery that was used in order to first fund and invest said energy. And then we find that through this nuclear fusion, we create infinitely renewable, rechargeable energy simply based on holding a stable fusion reaction based on the 64 tetrahedron laser formulation, which can then be focused on a 64th element of the periodic table as the central nucleation point. And from this, we then add the compression of magnetism to compress said light, and we could find an exponentially grows as power and generating infinitely renewable energy. Thank you.